Welcome back, everyone, to another big episode of our journey from local to global here in the Effganic Genesis mod on TEW IX. And not only do we have a big episode in terms of stories, canon, match cards, but this episode is going to be big because we are not going to stop recording until we grow in size. Yes, sir, as you can see, we are at the tiny status right now with 33 popularity in the Mid-South. Once we hit 35 popularity, we will be recognized as a small wrestling company, finally matching the other top two companies in the world in SPW and Viva La Lucha. Of course, both of those companies have been around years longer than we have. SPW 5 years and Viva La Lucha, I want to say at least 4 if not 5 as well. So we are, in fact, on the hunt to become the biggest wrestling company in the history of professional wrestling in our own little universe here in the Effganic Genesis mod, created by Mark Northern. Thank you, Mark. And we've got just a little bit of contract management. Oscar Kohler, his contract is coming to an end in just 30 days, or 23 days rather, excuse me. He is a part of a stable with Friedrich Herzog and Fritz Hattendorf as the Pride, and we are working on getting him some reps. He is a big body, 6'7", 316 pounds, so I do want to keep a character like this on the roster. We are going to continue this relationship, and we're going to make it a 2-year contract, and I anticipate he's going to agree. However, we are not going to know the results of that contract negotiation until after the show, and I want you to be along for this because we're going to place the hardline stance, which poses the risk of somebody in our locker room walking out with poor morale. And there is a list of guys with poor morale right now, and it could be any number of them. Hopefully it's none of them, but we are going to see just what happens. Nobody walks out. Thankful for that. I genuinely thought Masked Hammer might walk out. And with nobody walking out, that means we don't have to make any adjustments on the fly to our plans for the show this evening, and that is always a plus. We get the night started with a pre-show match. You see Hermenegildo Ramirez in a pre-show match. He doesn't really belong in the pre-show card, but the man didn't have any work this evening. So he just teams alongside new signee Black Demon, taking on Chris Brownfield and the Great Matsuo, and of course, Ramirez and Black Demon pick up the victory, as these are two very serious in-ring competitors, while Chris Brownfield and Great Matsuo are more just managers that can wrestle. But our introduction of Black Demon to the Wham continues as he makes his second appearance here. Segment rating 42, not bad for the pre-show match because our boy Hermenegildo Ramirez gets a nice performance of 53. But our show is going to get going with a segment rating of 39. We know that Joe Cartwright is not the most charismatic man in the world, and we've got him opening up the show, praising Elijah Mays for an impressive victory, gaining the Junior Heavyweight Championship after defeating Cartwright at the last event, the Frank Norris Tribute Show. Joe Cartwright expresses respect for the new champion, but cuts right to the chase. He wants his rematch tonight. Elijah Mays would waste no time, quickly making his way down to the ring with his new title belt. Once in the ring, Elijah Mays made it clear, if Cartwright wants his shot, he's getting it right now. Segment rating of 39, and show is getting off to a hot start with the championship match right off the bat. Joe Cartwright, Elijah Mays, and Elijah Mays coming out on top, defense number 1 of the Junior Heavyweight Championship. Joe Cartwright with an in-ring performance of 53, great work from the man. Elijah Mays had an in-ring performance of 43, and all in all we get a match rating of 47. So good work here. Not a barn buster by any means. Unfortunately, we'd like to see a little bit higher ratings with two of our better competitors, but it is what it is. It's a good rating, and I'm not mad at it, and it's a good way to get our show started as well. Moving into the next match, this match actually coming up short of my expectations. We had Masked Hammer defeating Super Shield as we got a one-on-one match between an ethical enforcer and a shiesty man that we know as Masked Hammer. Masked Hammer is really starting to establish an identity as a dirty worker here, but Super Shield coming up short because of Masked Hammer able to use those heelish tactics, getting away with it, as Super Monkey, who was ringside, as well as Turner Spittler, those two kind of were preoccupying one another. So all in all, Masked Hammer in-ring performance of 30, Super Shield continuing to build up some popularity here in America, just an in-ring performance of 20. The bout dragged in the middle, unfortunate there, we gotta script it next time I think, and all in all we get a segment rating, match rating of 21. Up next, we get the Wellington Dynasty back in action in handicap competition, as we've got the whole entirety of the Wellington Dynasty taking on Brian Hatcher. And if you've been used to the way that the Wellington Dynasty does things, you would know that this is predominantly a Bronson Fraley match with a little bit of interference and appearance from the Dynasty boys. Brian Hatcher getting an in-ring performance of 25, not bad. Bronson Fraley 40, Duke at 28, Duke at 26, Chuck at 28, and Angus down there at 18. Match rating of 30 for this handicap match. And we get a segment to follow, as we've got following the match. Despite coming away victorious, there is clear tension between Bronson Fraley and the Wellington brothers. I didn't type a lot here because I knew I would be describing it verbally. So Bronson Fraley and the Wellington brothers have had a little bit of tension. They've been at odds with one another. We know that Duke Wellington kind of snapped at Bronson Fraley. Bronson Fraley retaliated in a very small way. And ever since then, things have just kind of been off between these guys. Bronson Fraley kind of standoffish, and the Dynasty brothers not embracing their enforcer like they have in the past. Maybe losing some confidence in his allegiance. So just nothing super outright, but very clear tension between these guys. Following the match, we see Gabriela Suarez pouncing on Ivy Baldridge and would have to be pulled off, showing clear bitter feelings over suffering an upset loss at the Frank Norris tribute show. Gabriela was also unhappy with Emilio separating the two and didn't hesitate to make sure he knew it. So a little bit more divisiveness between Emilio and Gabriela Suarez, some sibling tension going on, but also Gabriela Suarez getting a physical measure of retaliation back on Ivy Baldridge, because Gabriela is just very, very unhappy with losing the match the way that she did. Up next, we get mixed tag team action between the Suarez siblings, taking on Christopher Hartwell and Ivy Baldridge, who are teaming up together. Christopher Hartwell and Ivy Baldridge have no real allegiance with one another, but for whatever reason, I just decided to use Christopher Hartwell as Ivy Baldridge's tag team partner. You know, obviously Joe Cartwright was competing in a match tonight, so here we are. Emilio Suarez and Gabriela Suarez do take care of business, as they do pick up the victory over Hartwell and Baldridge here. Not a ton of story as far as this match specifically, just some good work in the ring from Emilio Suarez with an in-ring performance of 50. Not bad work by Gabriela at 38, better than Christopher Hartwell, who was at 32, and then Ivy Baldridge at 29. All in all, we get a match rating of 40, so I think this is probably the best match that we've had featuring the ladies thus far. And as we continue on with this night, we get a great match that had an awful ending according to our fans because of the way that our product is. But we've got Friedrich Herzog, Sebastian Morales duking it out, going one-on-one, mano a mano, and Friedrich Herzog would in fact draw with Sebastian Morales as the two. And we would actually see a double countout from these two, as the action would spill out outside of the ring, and this fight would just kind of continue. That struggle would remain, and they would just basically lose track of the count a little bit, and they would lose track of the count a little bit in this kind of struggle, so to speak, and Kenny Lyles would have no choice but to throw the match out and call it a double countout. And given that it is a draw, the fans absolutely hated the ending to the match. So we just get a segment rating of 35 despite really good performances from our in-ring competitors. Sebastian Morales at 53, Herzog at 55. The match got a wrestling rating of 54, crowd rating at 34. I would imagine that we'd see a match rating maybe totaling around 44-ish or so, but we do get penalized for the way it ended. And then we get another match, no shenanigans after that one, as the two would just kind of be in disbelief that a match would even end in a draw, but they have no choice. But moving on into the next match, Woodrow Gunter defeating Randy Edson. We've got a lot of in-ring competition tonight, and it's just going to continue. Woodrow Gunter picking up the victory in this heavyweight division, and Woodrow Gunter has got a few victories in a row now, and he is on a roll. And we get a segment rating of 36, not a ton of story coming from this match specifically. However, after the match, Riker Zucker takes a moment to interview Woodrow Gunter following his victory. Woodrow Gunter highlights the ups and downs he's had while being in the WAM, but is confident he will prove to everyone that he will become champion sooner rather than later. Before Woodrow Gunter could continue, Neil Allman makes his way down to the ring, once again disrupting the segment. Neil Allman takes the microphone from Riker Zucker and then continues the interview for a short time. Allman would ask Gunter if he trusts the WHAM champion, Rahan Marlow, considering they both spent time in SPW together. Before Gunter could answer, Allman would turn away from the interviewee. Neil Allman would claim that he doesn't trust Rahan Marlow, and claims that he needs to be the one to take the WHAM championship away, and that someone from SPW shouldn't be champion here to begin with, which Woodrow Gunter quietly takes exception to, given that he is also from SPW. Neil Allman would vow to be the one to right the ship here in the WHAM, and would once again leave with microphone in tow. And just more continuation of this character development of Neil Allman, saying some interesting words about our WHAM champion and former SPW worker Rahan Marlow, but like I said, Woodrow Gunter, being a former SPW worker himself, found these words to be a little interesting. And our main event for the evening really fell flat, but it was a heavyweight championship. Unfortunately, it's just from August Washburn. So Rahan Marlow picking up a victory over a low-ranked competitor, but it does count as another heavyweight championship defense, and he makes defense number 5. So we just get a segment rating of 37, Rahan Marlow with an in-ring performance of 48, August Washburn at 20, and with the way our show is set up and everything, this main event being a low rating is really going to hurt our final show rating, but we'll just see what we get. Yeah, there it is, 39, but fortunately with the size of our company right now, 39 is actually a good show comparatively. So moving on, we're going to give some praise to Super Shield and Bronson Fraley. Another positive gain of about $2,000, and we stay at 33 in the Mid-South in terms of popularity. Now in between shows, just taking a look at some of the workers, we're going to make a few additions to our roster. The first one being a non-wrestler, Cody Tower. You know, I'll be real with you, the name doesn't match the face a little bit, but that doesn't matter. He is going to be another commentator, another broadcast position. But what attracts me to this guy is not only his very solid performance stats, charisma, microphone, acting, all looking pretty good. His play-by-play stats are looking good as well, but his popularity is already established 20 in every region across the United States. This is definitely an upgrade from Riker Zucker. So we're going to give him an offer for an exclusive handshake deal. We're just going to leave it ongoing, and hopefully he responds back positively. And we're actually going to make a contract offer to a female Sloan Knudsen. She doesn't have any experience really at all, and she is a free agent. And we're just going to assign her for one appearance. I got something specific in mind that we want to use her for. And given that our finances are not in a bad spot, we're going to spend some money to try to improve some morale issues, because we've got plenty of them going on right now. Woodrow Gunter is someone who's annoyed, and we're actually going to send him a $200 bonus and see just how that affects him. He's still annoyed, unfortunate. We'll give him a $300 bonus and see if that affects anything. He's still annoyed. That's not a good thing. This man's going to take some money to get him out of the state that he's in. But we're not going to continue to shell out a ton of money. We're going to move on. We're going to give Masked Hammer a bonus of $150 and see if that changes anything at all. These dollar amounts might be just too low to affect someone who is annoyed. We'll give a $200 bonus to Super Shield. That didn't change anything there. However, a $100 bonus did bring Black Bull from irritated to normal, so there is an upgrade, an improvement there rather. So we spent some money. We spent $900 trying to improve the morale there. It worked a little bit, but we're not necessarily in the hole. But we're not losing money each month, so there are steps that we can take. And there are even more financial moves that we're going to make once we do increase in size. And you can see here that Oscar Kohler has finally accepted his contract offer, and Cody Tower has also accepted his contract offer. We also sent a one appearance offer over to Kennedy Rosenblum, but she's actually got a bully personality type, and I'm not even going to waste time with someone who's going to just bring down the morale of our locker room, so I'm actually going to withdraw the offer that I'm sending her, and this will mean that we can't sign her for some time. I don't think it's going to affect anything. But Sloan Knutson, however, who's got a quiet personality who will not be a negative addition to the backstage morale, she is going to accept her contract and we're going to get her a part of the Wham, at least for one appearance. In a little piece of news that I thought was interesting, we would see Christopher Hartwell become the new FNP Nationwide Champion after defeating Rocco Sims. And we know that Christopher Hartwell is actually a pretty solid competitor outside of the Wham. He was doing some really good work for us when he was newer to the roster, but since then the level of competitors have kind of passed him by, at least here in the Wham. So good for you, Christopher Hartwell, main eventing shows in other companies. Good man. We're now ready to get into the next event, the Amazing Grappling Spectacle 77. And we've got a few pre-show matches to get us going. The first being a tag team match between the Pride, Fritz Hattendorf and Oscar Kohler, going up against Randy Edson and August Washburn. And as you can probably imagine, Fritz Hattendorf and Oscar Kohler come away victorious, getting our boys some reps, and we can see Fritz Hattendorf starting to get his in-ring performances a little bit better. This one at 35, Oscar Kohler at 27, Washburn at 19, and Edson at 28. Now the next match, despite only being 5 minutes and 40 seconds, there were still times where there was a definite lack of psychology on display. Unfortunate. Thanks to Hermenegildo Ramirez and his excellent in-ring work, we still get a match rating of 43, and really, even if it is an insignificant match to any kind of storyline, we might just have to continue to put Hermenegildo Ramirez on the card, just to bolster the overall card rating. I think that might be the move, but we do see the great Matsuo with an in-ring performance of 23 here, while Hermenegildo Ramirez got 55. To get the show going, we get the Black Bull back in action alongside the Dark Carnival. One-on-one matchup against Chuck Wellington here. Black Bull with a nice in-ring performance of 41. He's really turning into a solid competitor, and something that you love to see. He's got a gimmick that is getting stale that I have not addressed it, and it's been like that for so long, and I swear after this show I'm gonna do it. But we do see Chuck Wellington with an in-ring performance of 29, and ultimately Black Bull picking up the victory, and we get a match rating of 36. And of course, a segment to follow, some shenanigans. Following a tough loss, Chuck Wellington begins to lash out at Bronson Fraley, blaming his enforcer for the loss and lack of success of the group as of late. Bronson Fraley is clearly tired of being a subject to constant verbal tirades from the Wellington brothers, and is clearly conflicted in how to respond, juggling between physicality or peace. Ultimately, Fraley keeps composure and begins to make his way to the back while the brothers continue to reprimand him. At some point along the way, Fraley turns back, intimidating the brothers and shutting them up immediately. And I should mention, he turns back and reapproaches the brothers. He doesn't just turn around and scares them and intimidates them. It's a little bit more than that. But we get a segment rating of 33, and the cracks continue to grow and show within the Wellington dynasty. Big match here, as we've got the return of Albie Dewberry into the ring. Welcome back, coming back after a shattered elbow. Had to get some 1930 surgery. Big deal for Albie Dewberry, but he is back in the ring alongside Joel Cartwright, and it's good to see him. We do see the main show debut of Black Demon, the first time he's not in a pre-show match, and he comes away with an okay performance at 30. But all in all, Emilio Suarez and Black Demon do pick up the victory, Emilio Suarez pinning Joel Cartwright. Joel Cartwright was the best performer in the match at a 51 performance rating. Albie Dewberry with a 37, Emilio Suarez 43, and of course we already talked about Black Demon. Unfortunately, Suarez and Black Demon have absolutely zero chemistry whatsoever, and this will kind of solidify Black Demon's gimmick as a lone wolf almost, but I felt like this would be an appropriate way to introduce him into the main show, and it worked out okay as we get a match rating of 42. Now, we get a segment to follow the match. Joel Cartwright and Albie Dewberry would meet in the ring, consoling the other for the loss. While both men seemed to be apologizing to the other, what seemed to be a moment of camaraderie between the teammates, I was typing all over the place there, actually turned out to be a shocking turn of events when Albie Dewberry began to viciously attack Joe Cartwright. Dewberry would beat down the former junior heavyweight champion, leaving him in the ring worse for wear. So, big turn from Albie Dewberry. He was received very positively from the crowd, but he makes a shocking decision to turn his back on Joe Cartwright, beating him down, and these two have gained a bit of mutual respect over the years. However, that means nothing here, as Albie Dewberry clearly has got something on his mind with his return. But segment rating of 37, and we're going to move on. Match rating of 33, as we've got Super Monkey defeating Turner Spittler in 10 minutes via submission. Super Monkey with a nice in-ring performance of 40, and and that is something that's really encouraging because his popularity is still really low. So if he's getting 40s at a popularity of 10, who knows what he's going to be doing once he gets a little bit more established. Turner Spittler with an in-ring performance of 35. These two, despite good in-ring performances, we just get segment rating of 33. And a lot of that probably has to be attributed to keeping Turner Spittler strong, as this was the only way he would agree to taking the loss to Super Monkey without being extremely upset, as Super Monkey is considered unimportant still, and Turner Spittler is on that, at least I think recognizable if not well-known tier. And after the match, just a really small segment here, as Turner Spittler is furious with the loss, while Super Monkey and Super Shield give superhero-like poses near ringside. Almost like a comedic element with these masked guys, Super Monkey and Super Shield, the ethical enforcers. I just think it is fitting as they just do some ridiculous poses and stuff like that, looking rather noble and whatnot and proud of their work. Segment rating of 26, not what we were hoping for. And it continues to go down as we've got a segment rating of 23 for this match between Gabriela Suarez and Sloane Knutson. We only signed her for one appearance, so we will not be seeing her again, at least for any times. At least in the immediate future, but Gabriela Suarez, of course, taking care of business in just 5.5 minutes. In-ring performance of 37 for Gabriela, and she is trying to get back on track and release some aggression, some frustration that she's got with Ivy Baldridge. And after the match, Gabriela Suarez continues to pummel her opponent. Gabriela displays a mean streak that we've been seeing flashes of leading up to this point. In fact, Emilio Suarez would have to restrain his sister from dealing unnecessary damage, which Gabriela did not appreciate. In response, she would shove her brother back before making her way out of the ring area on her own. So more tensions between Emilio and Gabriela Suarez as their relationship continues to change. Sloane Knutson came in, did a job, got her ass beat, and I don't know when we're going to see her back. But she does have a positive personality, so there is some redeeming quality about her, so who knows if we're going to see her again. Moving on into the next match, this segment rating actually is a little disappointing, as we were hoping the star power of Elijah Mays would lift it just a little bit more than it did, but it is what it is. Elijah Mays defending his junior heavyweight championship against a former champion in Wayne Blankenship. Elijah Mays would take care of business in just 7.5 minutes with a nice in-ring performance of 40, Wayne Blankenship at 25, match rating at 34. Not a ton to say about this match specifically, other than Elijah Mays is still the champion. We get a segment prior to the main event. Rahan Marlowe is interviewed by Cody Tower. Rahan Marlowe is asked to respond to Neil Allman's statement from the month before regarding Marlowe's status as an outsider. Rahan Marlowe would respond with confidence, claiming he doesn't blame Neil Allman for wanting to be the one to take Marlowe down, and sympathizes with his frustrations, stating he would be upset too if someone came in and took his spot as the top guy in the company. Rahan Marlowe's confidence was plain as day to see, which the crowd couldn't help but respond to. The interview was brief, as Neil Allman would be the first to make his entrance, immediately catching the champion's attention. So, a pre-show or a pre-match interview with our champion, and obviously our champion is ringside to spectate this match. Our main event of the night is a big number 1 contendership match. And this segment in particular, segment rating of 38, we just wanted to introduce Cody Tower. I felt like this was a good way to do it. Now, fortunately, our main event delivers. We really needed it because the matches have not been that great tonight. We get a fatal 4-way between Friedrich Herzog, Neil Allman, Sebastian Morales, and Woodrow Gunter. And what do you know? The former champion Friedrich Herzog picks up the victory, pinning Sebastian Morales and earning himself another chance, another shot at Rohan Marlowe and regaining the heavyweight championship. So, just going over some numbers, Neil Allman had an in-ring performance of 49, Friedrich Herzog and Sebastian Morales both had in-ring performances of 55, Woodrow Gunter at 47, and like I said, we really needed this match to deliver. It did, match rating of 50, and that's even with Neil Allman and Friedrich Herzog both off of their game, excuse me. So thanks to a successful creative finish and some decent storylines going and some capable in-ring workers, we get a nice main event to end out the show. And thanks to that main event, we get an overall show rating of 44. We're going to continue to praise our unhappy boys. We're going to continue to make money with these shows. And we're going to continue to grow in popularity as we jump from 33 to 34. So as you can see here, Sloane Knutson has left the Wham. I'm not going to re-sign her anytime in the immediate future. Albie Dewberry is back, we know that. And there are only 30 days left on the contract of Fritz Hattendorf, and we are going to extend this man simply for the positive effect that he has when he is managing Friedrich Herzog. And a very small note here, but we finally have got Masked Hammer. He was annoyed and had cold momentum, but we gave him $400 in bonuses and we used a character idea, and we were finally able to give him not only some more momentum, but he is now pleased. And we are slowly but surely plugging away at these morale issues. And now that we got some money, it feels a lot better to do so. As you can see here, we still made $937 last month, and that was even with applying a lot of those bonuses, not the one I just gave to Masked Hammer obviously, but it won't take long to see what the overall P&L will be for this next month. And we've got big news in the world of wrestling as CSW, Chicago Style Wrestling, is at risk of going under as they are now negative $44,000 as their balance. That is not good. I honestly couldn't tell you if I've already bailed them out, but I'm going to bail them out again. If I've done it before. If not, this will be the first time. Hopefully it's the first time, but I really couldn't tell you if I've done it. So we're just going to go ahead and come on over here. We're going to flip their fortunes and we're going to give them 50 grand instead of being in the hole just under 50 grand. So hopefully this will allow Chicago Style Wrestling to turn things around and become prosperous. Because I don't want to see a ton of wrestling companies just go under, especially pre-Great Depression era. It'd be more interesting to see them go under during the Great Depression. So that is the move for now, and we're going to continue to move on. But without further ado, it's time to get back into the action, and of course, the Amazing Grappling Spectacle 78, and of course, we've got to get going with a pre-show match featuring August Washburn, our residential punching bag, more or less at this point. Taking a loss to Diego Bergen. Unfortunately, August Washburn actually sustains broken ribs in this one, but Diego Bergen with a bounce back performance of 34 here in the ring, while August Washburn gets a 19. Overall, we get a match rating of 21 in this pre-show match. Getting the night going, we're starting off hot with a 6-man tag team match between some junior heavyweights. Elijah Mays, Black Demon, and Hermenegildo Ramirez round out one team, while Emilio Suarez, Wayne Blankenship, and Christopher Hartwell fill out the other. And of course, Elijah Mays, Black Demon, and Hermenegildo Ramirez are the ones to take home the victory here. And just as far as some numbers, Hermenegildo Ramirez with a phenomenal in-ring performance of 63, Black Demon at 34, and Elijah Mays at 45. Christopher Hartwell 35, Emilio Suarez at 54, and Wayne Blankenship at 27. So some good notes here, and a few of our storylines centered around the junior heavyweights continue to evolve. We get a match rating of 48 for that past match, but this one just gets a 22 rating, very weak. And once again, this one comes down to the fans hating the ending of the match. Tag team action, we've seen this before. However, Super Monkey and Super Shield actually pick up the victory via countout after Masked Hammer fails to get back into the ring. Super Monkey outsmarting Masked Hammer, if you will. However, not exactly a heelish move, but a strategic one for sure. And overall, thanks to the shenanigans and the way that the match ended, it really hurts our rating, but we see a nice in-ring performance of 45 from Super Monkey, 24 from Shield, 37 from Hammer, and 34 from Turner Spittler. Now, we knew that Super Monkey could go in the ring. We knew he was a good competitor, given his stats and his popularity in Mexico. But I'm very pleased to see this kind of output and production this quickly into his tenure here. And of course, we've got a segment after the match. Once again in disbelief after being tricked into a loss, Turner Spittler and Masked Hammer look to punish Super Shield and Super Monkey. Spittler and Hammer make chase after the ethical enforcers, who quickly make their way back behind the curtain. Segment rating of 23, and just a little bit more of an animated segment here as Masked Hammer and Turner Spittler actually give chase to Super Monkey and Super Shield, but they take off. They get out of harm's way. They get out of dodge. Moving on into the next segment, and we would actually see Albie Dewberry making his way out to the ring, ready to address the crowd and provide some answers in regards to his attack on Joe Cartwright last month. Dewberry takes a moment to reflect on the time he has spent in the Wham, recognizing his presence on the roster during its earliest days. Albie Dewberry then begins to discuss how he has carried the junior heavyweight division throughout the Wham's history. He then touches on his injury, suffered during a pointless match while on his journey of recapturing the title. Dewberry begins to blame Cartwright for losing the championship, thus in turn losing Dewberry's opportunity for an immediate rematch upon his return. Albie Dewberry claims Joel Cartwright became blinded with sportsmanship, that he lost the competitor within him that made him champion in the first place. Dewberry states he isn't worried, as he puts over the Glory Gauntlet match coming later this month, where he will have his chance to regain what is rightfully his. Dewberry promises he will take down anyone who stands in his way. So just cementing the character shift from Albie Dewberry, as he is no longer the noble sportsman who showed mutual respect to Joel Cartwright. Clearly, Albie Dewberry is unhappy with Joel Cartwright losing the Junior Heavyweight Championship before Albie Dewberry could return. Now, it's not like Albie Dewberry never had a shot to regain his Junior Heavyweight Championship, but given the way that things were going, Albie Dewberry was definitely making a push to get back into that championship contention. And all in all, he is now even further down that ladder, thanks to having no kind of ties, no correlation to the new champion here, Elijah Mays. And we know these guys aren't the best performers as far as promos and things, so we just get a segment rating at 34 here. However, we get a great match, great rating at 50, and a hot triple threat here between some big time heavyweights, and we would see Neil Allman defeating Sebastian Morales and Woodrow Gunter here. And this basically is continuing to establish the pecking order of the heavyweight contenders. And these are some of our top guys, and they just go out and deliver a great match. Neil Allman in-ring performance of 52, Sebastian Morales at 51, and Woodrow Gunter at 45. And after the match, following a big victory, Neil Allman heads straight for the ringside production area, grabbing a microphone before Riker Zucker could even begin to announce his victory. After doing so himself, Neil Allman would then exclaim that he has proven his point and that he deserves to be the #1 contender for the heavyweight championship. And not only that, but he will be seeing Rohan Marlowe very soon. Neil Allman takes a moment to look over the crowd before making his way to the back, bringing the microphone along with him. Segment rating of 58, and we do get this note that Neil Allman did a masterful job of improvising interactions with the crowd, as this was not a scripted segment. Our good matches continue here, and we actually have a handicap match with Bronson Fraley and the Dark Carnival. There's a lot of story behind this, and we're going to get into it with this next segment, but let's go over the numbers here for this match specifically. Bronson Fraley is a very good competitor, however he could not overcome the numbers disadvantage. in a 3-on-1 handicap match against the Dark Carnival. Black Bull would be the one to score the pinfall victory, and as far as in-ring performances go, Bronson Fraley at 38, Greg Bean 37, Blue Mage at 46, and Black Bull at 43. All in all, we get a match rating of 42, and I am so proud of how far the Dark Carnival has come. You know, there were moments early on with Black Bull as a character where I wasn't too sure. Greg Bean almost got released. Blue Mage has actually been pretty solid despite not necessarily having the best kind of storylines coming into the WAM. However, these guys have really been putting it together, and I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that. So, well done. And now getting into the juiciness of this match. This was actually billed as a 3-on-3 tag team match. However, as the match begins, Bronson Fraley is the legal man for the Wellington Dynasty. However, the brothers Chuck and Duke would not remain ringside for long, as all three brothers would make their way away from the ring area, because remember, Angus is the manager in this situation, leaving Bronson Fraley alone to face the Dark Carnival on his own. While he clearly is not thrilled, Bronson Fraley isn't exactly surprised by this action from the brothers and prepares himself to face the number disadvantage. So the Wellington brothers back on their bullshit, continuing to throw fits and act rather immaturely, for lack of a better term. And they leave the match, they leave Bronson Fraley on his own, and as we discussed in the last segment, Fraley could not get it done. Now we've got a main event heavyweight championship match. Friedrich Herzog crowned himself the #1 contender last month in a fatal 4-way match, and now he's got the opportunity to face Rahan Marlowe one-on-one. However, Rahan Marlowe actually comes out on top yet again. Rahan Marlowe continues to do this thing, and not only does he continue to successfully defend his heavyweight championship against very formidable competitors, but he's doing it cleanly. There are no shenanigans to end this match, just good wrestling here in Oklahoma City. And the crowd goes home. I don't necessarily want to say happy. It's really up in the air on the WHAM crowd getting behind Rahan Marlowe, because Rahan Marlowe is a little rough around the edges, but he's a damn good competitor, as shown by his in-ring performance of 59. Friedrich Herzog, of course, at 58. And all in all, this match rating gets us a 58 and a really strong show, and I'm liking what I'm seeing as we head into the Glory Gauntlet event. Now, following a big victory for Rahan Marlowe, he begins to celebrate in the ring. However, the celebration would not last long, as Neil Allman, carrying the microphone from before, makes his way out to the ring, and the two immediately focus on the other, and an intense standoff takes place between champion and a hopeful challenger as the show comes to an end. Segment rating of 51 to finish us off, and I am liking these numbers. We get an overall rating of 54 for this show, really strong. And we are praising Black Bull and Albie Dewberry post-show. August Washburn is going to be injured for the next 27 days. He can work through the broken ribs, and it's only going to affect him for one show anyway. Now, taking a look, we probably should have given Super Shield a little bit more attention in that post-match address, as he is now angry. We're going to go ahead and try to relieve his situation with some monetary incentive to get him to just chill the F out. He's $300 was not enough. He's still angry. I don't want to go crazy with it, but I am going to give him a $400 bonus, and that doesn't change anything at all. We don't have any character ideas, so he's going to stay angry for a minute, because I'm not going to give him more than $700 right at this time. We do have the money to spend, but it's still just not something I'm going to do. And unfortunately for us, Super Shield just was not going to take being angry here in the Wrestling Association of the Mid-South, and he has taken upon himself to actually just leave and walk out without giving any notice. So he has left Super Monkey high and dry, and that is rather unfortunate, and we're not going to be able to re-sign him back anytime soon because of the nature in which he's leaving, but he's going to remain in the Mid-South as an unemployed wrestler. I wonder if SPW is going to pick him up, maybe somebody else, but these nice stats are not going to benefit us here right now. We were able to get him up to 16 popularity before he just decided to dip, so it is unfortunate, but it's not going to break us by any means. And with no more further shenanigans, it's time to get into the Glory Gauntlet event, the second edition here in the WAM, and we've got an attendance of 352 people, which I believe is a new record. And we've got a pre-show match. This really just kept everyone in the company on the match card. So we got a 5-man match: August Washburn, Brian Hatcher, Randy Edson, Oscar Kohler, and Fritz Hattendorf in a free-for-all, every man for himself. Match rating of 29, and it was highlighted by Fritz Hattendorf, who got an in-ring performance of 36, August Washburn at 15, although he is working through some cracked ribs, Brian Hatcher at 29, Randy Edson at 27, and Oscar Kohler at 31. So not a lot of good in this match. However, Oscar Kohler and Fritz Hattendorf didn't look too bad in this match, all things considered. Like we said, 29 match rating. Moving into the actual start of the show, we've got Kuni Hashiguchi and Ivy Baldridge going one-on-one in some women's competition. And we've got Kuni Hashiguchi with a really nice performance of 52 actually. Ivy Baldridge at 30. And this one, the match itself, no shenanigans, not a lot of stuff at play here, not a lot of outside factors, just a good victory for Kuni Hashiguchi, and she gets a segment rating. And these two ladies get a match rating of 44. Good way to kick off our show. Our next match, not a ton of story behind this one, but like we said, we really tried to fill the match card with just about everyone who was involved with the company. We get a match rating of 47 as Woodrow Gunter picking up a good victory over Diego Bergen. And good performances here from both men, but Woodrow Gunter especially with his in-ring performance of 56. Diego Bergen at 41 here, match rating of 47. Up next, 6-man tag team action with the Dark Carnival back in the ring. And we would even see the Dark Carnival pick up a victory here over Turner Spittler, Masked Hammer, and the Great Matsuo. This is a bit of an odd pairing as far as the Great Matsuo and these other two guys. We've obviously seen Turner Spittler and Masked Hammer team up plenty of times, and had Super Shield not just walked out of the company, we probably would have seen some kind of continuation of that rivalry here, but Super Monkey's got a match to prepare for later this evening. But I digress. This is just a momentum builder for the Dark Carnival as they pick up another victory against some decent opponents here. And we would see the Great Matsuo with an in-ring performance of 27, not the worst, Masked Hammer at 40, which was the best of his team, Turner Spittler at 36, Craig Bean 44, Blue Mage 51, and Black Bull 43, and the Dark Carnival really is looking nice with their in-ring performances. All in all, we get a match rating of 39 here. Again, not a ton of story here. However, it's going to start getting juicy here. Friedrich Herzog once again continuing to show his might as he picks up a victory over Sebastian Morales in one-on-one competition. Friedrich Herzog with an in-ring performance of 62 and Sebastian Morales with an in-ring performance of 58. And again, no shenanigans at play to end this match, just a straight up one-on-one competition, and Sebastian Morales fails to topple the former heavyweight champion, and we get a really good match rating of 56. Now moving into the next segment, moving in between matches, we've got a segment as Bronson Fraley makes his way to the ring alone and quickly orders Riker Zucker to come hold a microphone for him. Fraley's sentiment is short and sweet. He is done with the Wellington brothers and challenges any of them to step in the ring with him. All three brothers would appear, but only one would take the challenge. Just a quick little 2-minute segment here, just a rating of 38. This would set up the match between Bronson Fraley and Duke Wellington. Unfortunately, they do not click at all, and it made for an awkward bout here. However, Bronson Fraley still with an in-ring performance of 40, good work there, and Duke at 26, which isn't the best, but we know he can do a little bit better. And unfortunately, we've been building to this for quite a while, the true separation between Bronson Fraley and Duke Wellington, and I still need to take Fraley out of the Wellington dynasty as the stable so he loses the backdrop. But anyway, I failed there. Regardless, we see Bronson Fraley able to get some of his frustrations out on the Wellington brothers as they have continued to do him dirty, hold him back, keep him from competing in the heavyweight championship scene, but expect him to basically carry them into tag team championship relevancy and stuff like that. He was just tired of it. So, the separation of Fraley and the Wellingtons has become official, and we get a segment rating of 34 here. Although after the match, Bronson Fraley stares down the Wellington brothers, who have come to aid Duke after suffering a hard loss. Fraley looks determined and serious, contrasting his typical arrogant demeanor. The Wellington brothers are extremely vengeful towards their former enforcer, and this surely will not go without retaliation. Segment rating of 35 to truly end this bit here at this event between these guys. And now we get a really nice heavyweight championship match where Rahan Marlowe, standing tall, still heavyweight champion, defeating Neil Allman in this match, and you know Neil Allman is not going to be happy with it. But we wanted these boys to go steal the show, and they did just that. Excellent match rating of 59, and that is thanks to Rahan Marlowe's performance of 63, Neil Allman getting a 52. And Rahan Marlowe has really delivered ever since he stepped foot into the WAM, and it's been very pleasing to see. So a great representation for the heavyweights in an event that is centered around the junior heavyweights, as we've got our main event just about to come up. But first, we've got this next segment as Neil Allman coming up short in another shot at the heavyweight championship. Neil Allman begins to frantically make his way around the ring area before confiscating the microphone near the production booth in an embarrassed panic. Neil Allman attempts to hide himself, to no avail. This would blend all too well with the cocky arrogance from Rahan Marlowe on full display here after taking down another former champion. Despite his attitude rubbing most people the wrong way here, Marlowe has been backing up his talk and knocking down his opponents clean and decisively. So just a segment rating of 30 here. So just a segment rating of 38 here. Honestly, I thought we'd get a better rating, but that's not the case, and that's just the way it's going to be. But this is the final bow on the heavyweight championship match, and just Neil Allman kind of beside himself after coming up short once more. However, moments later, thanks to having another microphone on hand, Cody Tower takes a moment to explain the rules of the Glory Gauntlet match. As two men will begin the match, eliminations occur through pinfall, submission, or countout. Once a wrestler is eliminated, a new one will take his place until there is only one man left standing, crowning him the junior heavyweight champion. And it doesn't mean that the champion starts out at the beginning of the match. It should be known if I didn't already say that last year. However, Cody Tower did not have a script to follow, and he did well because of it. Segment rating of 55, and it's finally time to get into the Glory Gauntlet match, the second Glory Gauntlet match. Overall, we get a match rating of 45, and all in all, we would see Elijah Mays retain his junior heavyweight championship. And this isn't status quo of a Glory Gauntlet, but Elijah Mays, much like he did last year in terms of running the entire gauntlet, he is once again running the gauntlet, starting out in that first position, and he takes down every single participant in this match in succession. Elijah Mays is that dude. As you can see here, we got Chris Brownfield being eliminated first, followed by Christopher Hartwell, Wayne Blankenship, Black Demon, Emilio Suarez, Super Monkey, Joel Cartwright, and Albie Dewberry, and finally Hermenegildo Ramirez. Basically 10 matches in succession, and Elijah Mays is a machine for that. So altogether, a show rating of 48 as the second ever Glory Gauntlet is a success, as I would consider it. Now, getting into the post-show locker room, we're going to give some praise to a few more disgruntled workers, and we did make a profit of just over $1,900 in this one, and we stay at 34 popularity here in the Mid-South, just on the cusp of 35. And thanks to some pre-show shenanigans, locker room incidents, Black Demon has managed to become angry already in just a short time here at the WAM. Thanks to 2 incidents that he was involved in back-to-back shows, he was very displeased that we fined him for arguing with fans and whatnot. So, Black Demon, we're going to give him his fine back, more or less, and we're going to offer him a $500 bonus, and we're going to see if that can alleviate his anger. It does not alleviate his anger, but I'm not looking for another Super Shield situation. I do not want to lose this guy, and I've got faith that Black Demon will become a good worker. So I'm actually going to give him another bonus, this time $750. And he is still angry, brother, help me out. I can't give him any character ideas because I only have character-specific character ideas. And Black Demon remains angry despite receiving $1,450 in bonuses. This dude, I'm going to give him one more bonus and we're going to see if it works. We're going to go with $1,000 this time. Quite the bill. And he's annoyed. I'm just going to have to deal with that because I'm not going to shell out even more money to him. It's just unfortunate that this guy is already getting in that state. He is a troublemaker. He's probably going to continue to have issues before matches and before shows. And the Black Demon project may not turn out the way that I'm hoping for. And already dropping $2,200 on him just to keep him not angry does not feel great. As you can see here, we are coming up on the end of the Wellington's contracts, and we are going to, of course, extend them. We're going to go ahead and just do an ongoing contract with creative control involved to each of the Wellington brothers, and we're going to see just how that plays out. We haven't seen it affect us too much yet. I think it's mostly because they haven't established any kind of pecking order or spot on the card beyond recognizable. But as they continue to mature and develop, I think we're going to see this eventually have some kind of effect on the way that our game plays. Either that or the Wellingtons are just going to get banished in some capacity, but we haven't gotten that far yet. We're going to see just when that comes. And like I said, we are continuing this video until we grow in size, so we are right on to the next edition of the amazing grappling spectacle, this edition being edition 79. And what a way to get this event started by highlighting the return of Benson Sandy. The man has come back to the WAM after a hiatus of an unemployment really for him. Unfortunately, he didn't turn into the star he thought he was going to after he left the WAM, so he has come back. I like his stats. He's really missed a lot, and he's got to grow in popularity to catch up with most of the roster. However, I've got faith in him. And we got a triple threat to get the night going in the pre-show. Benson Sandy taking home a victory against two junior heavyweights, Wayne Blankenship and Christopher Hartwell, match rating of 27. Moving into the next match, the show opener, Black Demon picking up a victory over Diego Bergen. This one is a bit interesting because Black Demon is a junior heavyweight and Diego Bergen is a heavyweight, so we do have that. But Diego Bergen's stock has been dropping as of late, and he's not built a lot of momentum up in the year of 1931, whereas Black Demon has got some things going for him. So he picks up the victory here, and not only does he pick up a victory, I didn't want to use this to totally taint the ending, but he benefits from a distraction from none other than the Dark Carnival. And we see Black Demon and Dark Carnival, Black Bull, Blue Mage, Bryant Hines, Craig Bean sharing the ring together and having a segment as the Dark Carnival stands directly in front of an unflinching Black Demon. There seems to be some kind of chemistry between the group and the newcomer. However, there are no spoken words, so everything is purely speculation at this point in time, and all we've seen is Black Demon pick up a victory off of the back of a distraction from the Dark Carnival. This exchange lasted for a few moments, but not long after, Black Demon would turn away and begin to make his way to the back. Segment rating of 34, and as you can see here, Black Demon, the Japan-born and raised Black Demon, does not speak the language very well, but he was held back by the language barrier here. Moving into the next match, we've got the ladies featured in action once again, this time in a triple threat tag team match. And we've got some big names in the slots for the males really lifting this match up, as Team Hermenegildo Ramirez, he and Ivy Baldridge, the Suarez siblings, and then Sebastian Morales and Kuni Hashiguchi all going at it to determine a winning team. And we would actually see Hermenegildo Ramirez and Ivy Baldridge come out on top, picking up some serious momentum. And the women have been playing a little bit of hot potato as far as trading victories here, but all in all, as far as numbers go, we see Ivy Baldridge at 23, Hermenegildo Ramirez at 48, Gabriella 40, Emilio 53, Kuni Hashiguchi at a 46, very well done for her, and Sebastian Morales at 52. Altogether, really good performances. We get a segment rating of 44, despite Hermenegildo Ramirez and Ivy Baldridge having absolutely zero chemistry as partners. And so a strong match here. We know that issues have been brewing between the Suarez siblings, and we just see more frustrations come about from another loss here. Hermenegildo Ramirez and Ivy Baldridge putting together a big victory, and Sebastian Morales Kuni Hashiguchi taking a surprising loss. Now moving into the next match, we've got Chuck Wellington in singles action going up against August Washburn, who is looking very stale. We need to change his gimmick. Not a ton to say about this match specifically. It was a short match. Chuck Wellington actually had his hands full with the jobber like August Washburn, which doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, but Chuck Wellington does pick up the victory, cleanly at that, over August Washburn, who just gets an in-ring performance of 20, while Chuck has a 28. Altogether, we've got a match rating of 24. And while celebrating his victory, Riker Zucker gets a word in with Chuck Wellington. Zucker is looking for a response regarding Bronson Fraley taking down Duke Wellington at the previous event. Chuck Wellington responds with a focused air of confidence and states that Fraley will pay soon enough, placing a challenge for a singles match at the first event of 1932. So Chuck Wellington has got some time to prepare for this match, but he is setting the stage for a one-on-one showdown with Chuck Wellington going up against former enforcer Bronson Fraley. Moving into the next match, we get what is billed to be a grudge match between Albie Dewberry and Joel Cartwright. However, Albie Dewberry not playing by the rules of competition and nobility or honor or anything like that, as during Joel Cartwright's entrance, Albie Dewberry actually attacks Cartwright pre-match and just brutalizes him, getting him in a bad way and really setting Albie Dewberry up for success. He would throw him in the ring and the match would get started. Joel Cartwright, of course, isn't just going to lay over and make things easy. However, it only takes Albie Dewberry 5 minutes before he's able to force Joel Cartwright to submit. And we do not get a great match here. We're hoping to see some better numbers, but this match was just a little too short for these guys to really do a whole lot. Both of these men got penalized for holding back, and all in all, we just get a match rating of 31, but I can assure you this will not be the last encounter between these two. Moving into our main event in the ring, a really nice match rating, segment rating of 51 all in all, another 6-man tag team match, but this one is just 2 teams of 3 rather than 3 teams of 2 like earlier, and we would actually see Rahan Marlowe, Woodrow Gunter, and Neil Allman picking up a victory over the Pride, Friedrich Herzog, Fritz Hattendorf, and Oscar Kohler in just under 6 minutes after Rahan Marlowe secures a pinfall over Fritz Hattendorf. And we pinned their ears back and said, go and steal the show. These gentlemen pulled together a nice rating of 51 here, highlighting the night with a big 6-man tag team match, and Rahan Marlowe just continuing to look strong, continuing to look really good as champion, picking up clean pinfall victories and not using a whole lot of shenanigans, despite not having the most endearing personality. We do see the Pride take a loss. This is not going to make them feel great, but it does keep some momentum going for Woodrow Gunter and Neil Allman. Now moving into our next segment, this is more or less the main event, and we've got Junior Heavyweight Champion Elijah Mays making his way out to the ring alongside the great Matsuo, who is his manager. Elijah Mays motions Riker Zucker into the ring, but Matsuo snatches the microphone away and quickly shoos Zucker right back out. The great Matsuo speaks with great flair and energy, however he only has a rough understanding of English, making for a passionate promo that is difficult to understand. Elijah Mays stands with his championship, looking like an imposing force. Matsuo finishes his piece, and the crowd is unsure how to react. Elijah Mays then grabs the microphone and proclaims that if Barnabas Beef Wellington hasn't gotten the message, Elijah Mays wants what is owed to him. And if you've been around the series, you would know the whole point of Elijah Mays becoming Junior Heavyweight Champion lies within the determination to become Heavyweight Champion in the WHAM, despite Elijah Mays only being a Junior Heavyweight. So, segment rating of 46, and this is actually how our show ends. There's not even an interruption, nothing like that. I just wanted to see the great Matsuo have a go at an improvised promo, and it went well. I like it. Segment rating of 46 to end off our show, and all in all we get a rating of 46 for our show in total. Now moving on to the locker room, we've still got to keep people happy. Black Demon, he doesn't make me feel great because I really don't think he's gonna stay happy. I think he's gonna kind of be like Black Bull but amplified and just always be annoyed. So we are going to tell both of these men that they are awesome. We gained $2,000 even from this show, and that will really help since we had to pay Black Demon so much money from being so salty earlier. This will finally do it. We will finally grow to 35 popularity in the Mid-South, and that's going to unlock a lot of stuff for our company. We're going to get into that in just a second. And as you can see here, the Wham, they rise to the small size, and it feels really good. 35 popularity here in the Mid-South. We are now chasing medium size, achieving 59 popularity in the home region of Mid-South, plus 35 in either the Southeast or Southwest regions. Now, I've got a little bit of a plan for this one. Of course, we are going to start broadcasting now that we've reached small size. However, I haven't shown it too much, but almost every single event we've done has been in Oklahoma City, and ever since I got really intentional about it, they've all been in Oklahoma City. And we are going to now start moving around the country, taking this into a more, not so much of a tour, but more of a traveling circus now, so to speak. I think we're going to up the product to appearing every 2 weeks, and we might go monthly every now and then. We might maybe shoot for 15 to 18 events a month, because I do want to continue this fast pace. We are gaining a lot of ground. We have gone 6 years into this database and this save. So I want to continue to pass time to see kind of generational transitions. I also don't want to fall too far behind the curve because I know SPW is doing weekly shows. So that's a little up in the air. Comment down below what you think about our show frequency. Obviously, from a gameplay standpoint, weekly might be best, but just to see this whole mod in its entirety, to go from the 1920s to even the 50s, 60s, who knows how far we can take this, I want to see what that would end up looking like. Establish some kind of legacy in the Wham, you know what I'm saying? But this has been a journey and a very big episode, so thank you all for sticking around. If we can get this video up to 25 likes, just 25 of them things, that will unlock the next episode. So show your support, leave some feedback down in the comments. I need it more than you know, but for all of those subscribed to the Real One tier on Patreon, you guys are awesome and your support is greatly appreciated. And everyone else, thank you for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. Take it easy.